4 of the deliberations in the Patz murder trial. It just ended without a verdict. The jury delved deep into the mountain of evidence they heard over the past 10 weeks. CBS 2's Jessica Schneider has been covering the trial since the very beginning. She is live tonight for us in Lower Manhattan. Jessica.
Well, Maurice, the jury just wrapped hour number 23 of deliberations. Those 7 men and 5 women leaving no stone unturned. They are meticulously parsing through every single detail in this case, even the most minute detail. In fact, today they even asked what the weather was like on May 25th, 1979, the day Patz disappeared. Now, some of the other things that they asked for today and some of the readbacks they asked for, the blueprint to the Soho building where Pedro Hernandez allegedly tossed a box with little Eitan's body back in 1979. Also phone records, transcripts of conversations between Hernandez and his second wife, and testimony from Hernandez's brother-in-law, Jose Lopez. Now, this was interesting testimony because Lopez said he heard the stories that Pedro Hernandez confessed to a church group about killing a little boy in the 1980s. But it wasn't until that brother-in-law was able to access the internet in the year 2000 that he decided he needed to call police. He said for many years his phone calls and tips were ignored by authorities, but he said an NYPD detective finally listened in May 2012, and that's, of course, when Pedro Hernandez was finally arrested. I asked defense attorney Harvey Fishbein what all of these evidence requests from this jury might mean. Are you concerned at all by the length of the deliberation, the amount of evidence they're asking for, maybe dissension in the ranks in the jury room?
Well, again, I'm not concerned. I don't get a sense of any dissension. They're doing exactly what I asked them to do. Look at the evidence. We picked a smart jury in order to look at the evidence, not to have a knee-jerk reaction.
And the jury does have a lot on its plate to consider. They need to consider whether that confession to police was real or coerced, whether the stories that Pedro Hernandez told were also accurate despite inconsistencies. And they also need to disregard who the defense has been pointing to as the real suspect, a convicted child molester, Jose Ramos, in this case. Live in Lower Manhattan, Jessica Schneider, CBS 2 News.
Jessica, with all this kind of detail, you know the jury is very conscientious. They're working really hard. I mean, it's impossible to say what they're thinking. We're not in the room, but what does this kind of evidence that they're asking to read back and hear again, what does that tell you, if anything?
It's the big question, Maurice. You know, lawyers wonder what exactly they're thinking when they ask for all of these minute details. I've been watching the jury as they come back into the room. These are very smart jurors. The defense attorney said it. The prosecution has said it. These are people who are very meticulous, poring over all of the evidence in this case. And with 10 weeks of testimony and evidence, there is a lot to sift through. So a lot of questions, and what everyone wants to know, what are they thinking? Maurice?
You bet, Jessica. And so much hanging in the balance, obviously, too. Thank you so much. Back at it tomorrow. Jessica Schneider.